A 76-year-old woman sat quietly near the front of a Texas bus until a man tried to humiliate her with a racist slur. But when she refused to move, the entire bus transformed into something powerful. Gloria Mayfield's knees were barking, not just sore, tired in that deep, bone-heavy way that only shows up after decades of stairs, long days, and not enough rest. She gripped her purse close, stepped onto the Route 12 Metro bus in Wichita Falls, Texas, and gave the driver a small nod. Not the kind of nod people notice, the kind you give when you're too polite to complain, but your whole body's asking for mercy. She'd just left the county hospital, where her granddaughter had delivered a healthy baby boy the night before. First one in the family named Elijah. Gloria had stayed late, brought soup, cleaned the room a little, kissed that baby's tiny forehead. Her back ached, but her heart was full. So when she eased into one of the front seats on the bus, closest to the door, wide enough for her to shift her legs a little, it wasn't about making a statement. It was just about resting her joints. The driver pulled the lever, the doors wheezed shut. The air inside buzzed low with small talk and squeaky sneakers. Kids in the back. A man near the middle scrolling loud through sports highlights. A couple whispering in Spanish by the window. Gloria leaned against the cool window, breathing out slow. Then the next stop hit. And he climbed on, 30-something. Ball cap low, faded hoodie zipped halfway up like it was holding something inside. A sharpness in the way he moved, not fast, not slow, just angry. Like he'd come out looking for a problem and had already decided where to find it. His eyes locked on her before he even paid his fare. "You deaf or just playing dumb?" he barked, stepping toward her. "Get in the back, Rosa Parks!" It was so loud, the bus went still. Even the guy watching sports lowered the volume. Somebody snorted from the back, a short laugh that didn't last. A few others looked out the windows like suddenly the scenery got more interesting. Gloria didn't flinch. She just looked up, calm, not passive, steady, like someone who'd seen storms worse than this one. "I'm sitting where I need to sit," she said. Her voice was low but clear. Every word floated like it weighed more than it should have. The man didn't like that. "Don't play games with me, Grandma," he snapped, now fully blocking the aisle. "You think you're special. You ain't Rosa Parks. That was decades ago. Sit back down there with the rest." No one moved. Not Gloria, not the driver, not a single person on that bus. But Gloria wasn't thinking about him anymore. Not really. Her mind had shifted somewhere else, back to the marches, the protest signs, the fire hoses on TV, her older brother in Mississippi, her first job where they made her use a different coffee mug. This wasn't just about a seat on a bus. It never had been. Her fingers gripped her purse a little tighter, but her eyes never left his face. "I paid like everybody else," she said, "and I'm not going anywhere." That silence came back again, but it was thicker now, like the air didn't know which way to turn. Even the bus engine hummed quieter. But the silence that followed his words wasn't fear. It was a fuse waiting to burn. Derek shifted his weight, one foot tapping fast against the rubber floor, the other planted like a dare. You could see it. He expected a reaction. Wanted it. Maybe a curse word, a scream, someone flinching or telling him to calm down so he could explode harder. But all he got was Gloria, sitting there like she had time. "You know what? You people always think someone owes you something," he muttered, glancing around now, like fishing for support. "Act like you're better than the rest of us, like history gives you some kind of pass." Still no movement. A girl near the back, high school age, lowered her earbuds. She looked toward Gloria but stayed still. Her eyes said what her lips didn't. "Is this really happening right now?" Derek pointed a finger at Gloria, like a warning and maybe a threat that didn't quite know where to land. "I said move," and that's when Gloria finally looked at him. Really looked. Not through him, not around him, at him. There was something in her stare that made Derek take half a step back without meaning to. A kind of weight behind her eyes that only comes from someone who's endured more than a few lifetimes' worth of insult. You ever had to look a sheriff in the eye while he held a baton in one hand and your brother's freedom in the other? She said slowly. You ever walk home in the rain because your driver told you the colored stop was a block too far? He didn't answer. Didn't expect a question. He blinked like someone trying to shake off static. You call me Rosa Parks like it's an insult, she added. You think that name shames me? Someone behind him whispered, Whoa. Derek was losing grip. That thread of confidence he strutted on when he got on the bus was thinning. Still, his pride wouldn't let go. Don't try to play victim, he said louder now. You people always got some sad story. A woman behind him shifted in her seat. He didn't see her at first, but Gloria did. She was maybe in her 60s. White, short silver hair, dressed in a tan coat and jeans. She looked like someone's retired librarian or a grandmother on her way to a gardening club. But when she stood up, the air changed again. Young man, she said. Calm, cold, that's enough. Derek turned like a switch flipped. Mind your business, lady. But she wasn't intimidated. My name is Sylvia Rowan, and this is my business. You could feel the bus breathe in again. People turned around. Even the driver glanced into the mirror. See, I rode this same bus line back in 1978, Sylvia said. I've sat beside women like her my entire life, and I'm not going to stand here while some loudmouth brat tries to drag us back 50 years. Derek laughed, but it was weak, confused. What are you, some old liberal? No, I'm someone who knows what decency looks like. And this ain't it. For a second he looked like he might yell again, like his face was ready to contort into another insult. But then, click, the sound came from the back. A man with short dreadlocks and a navy peacoat lifted his phone. He wasn't hiding it. The screen was bright. Recording. You're live, he said flatly. Derek froze. Not completely, but enough. Like the idea of being seen shifted the balance. Get that thing off me. Nope. Sylvia stepped closer now, not backing down. You had no problem yelling in front of us. Let the world see too. Gloria still hadn't moved. Her purse in her lap, hands folded. But her eyes didn't blink. But before Derek could puff himself up again, a voice behind him cut through the air like a blade. You got something to say, sweetheart? Derek turned around fast, puffing up like he'd just been challenged to a fight. He faced the voice from the back of the bus. Firm, female, deliberate. It came from a woman maybe in her late 20s, mid-30s tops. Black, slim, wearing a forest green State College hoodie. Hair pulled back tight. Her name, she later said, was Camille Dorsey. I said, Camille repeated. You can't talk to her like that. Not on this bus, not today. Derek scoffed. I'll talk how I want. Yeah, she replied. You think being loud makes you right? He glanced around again. The crowd on the bus wasn't moving, but they were listening. Derek had walked into a space he thought he could dominate, but the room had quietly shifted around him. Camille stood up now, not charging forward, just standing. Calm, eyes steady, arms crossed in front of her. My grandfather marched in Selma, she said. You don't get to use Rosa Parks as a punchline. Not around me. Sylvia was still close, flanking Derek from the other side. It was like the air around him had thickened, closing in, one voice at a time. Gloria hadn't said a word since her quiet line earlier, but the silence around her had changed. Now it was charged, protective, the kind of silence that says, she doesn't have to say anything. We'll speak for her. Then Derek tried the oldest move in the book. He pointed toward his phone and said, Y'all don't even know me. This is harassment. She's filming me, he's filming me. I should call the cops. Call them, Sylvia said. Please do. Let's make sure they know your name too. Camille added, You wanted an audience, right? You got one now. At that, Derek looked toward the driver's mirror, maybe hoping for backup. But Ruben Ortiz, the man behind the wheel, wasn't having it. He'd been quiet long enough. Mid-50s, lean, wore a baseball cap that said Wichita Falls Transit across the brim. Been driving the same route 11 years. Seen fights, crying kids, old folks with oxygen tanks, drunk teens puking in the aisle. But this felt like something else. He put the bus in park. "Sir," Reuben called out, voice steady. "You need to sit down or step off. I'm not driving with this going on." Derek turned to him like he was betrayed. "She started it," he lied, pointing to Gloria. Reuben shook his head, slow. "Nobody started anything but you. I got a camera above your head, a bus full of witnesses, and I've already radioed dispatch. So either get off or wait for security." It was like something inside Derek flickered. He looked around one more time, saw the girl near the back with her phone still up, saw the college student still standing, saw Gloria still not moving. Camille stepped down the aisle. She wasn't even walking toward him, just toward the exit. But the way she moved, Derek had to step aside. She paused right next to Gloria. "You okay, Mom?" Gloria nodded once. "Don't let people like that ruin your day," Camille said. Gloria answered, soft but clear. "Honey, I've had people like that ruin my decade. This is a pebble." Somewhere in the back, someone chuckled under their breath. Derek stayed frozen for a beat longer, like his pride couldn't figure out whether to fight or flee. His mouth opened like he might try one more insult, but nothing came out. But the real shift came when the bus driver made a choice that couldn't be ignored. Reuben Ortiz had driven through thunderstorms, late-night emergencies, and once even helped deliver a baby in the back of his bus when traffic locked up. But nothing tested his patience, quite like people who brought hatred on board. He picked up the radio and pressed the button. "Dispatch, this is Bus 12. I've got a passenger refusing to comply. Requesting transit police at the next stop. Midland and Oak Ridge." The entire bus could hear it. Reuben didn't lower his voice. He wasn't making a scene. He was drawing a line. Derek blinked, suddenly unsure of where to look. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I didn't do anything wrong." Reuben didn't answer. He just looked straight ahead, hands resting on the wheel. The doors stayed shut. The bus wasn't moving. Traffic honked behind them. Sylvia crossed her arms again. "You had your say. Now go." Camille sat back down beside Gloria, glancing at the window to see if the authorities were nearby yet. The girl with the earbuds whispered something to the person next to her. Another man near the back pulled out his phone, too. Derek turned to the passengers with a shaky laugh. "Come on! Are we all pretending this is normal now? I just told a joke." Camille snapped her eyes up. "That wasn't a joke. That was hate disguised as sarcasm." He waved her off. "She's sitting where she wants, isn't she? Nobody touched her. You tried to humiliate her." Sylvia shot back. "You thought nobody would say anything." He opened his mouth to retort, but just then, lights. A white and blue transit SUV pulled up just beyond the front window. Reuben stood and opened the door. 2 transit officers stepped on. One was black, one Latino, both in grey uniforms with clipboards and body cams blinking red. "Afternoon," said the taller officer. "Which one's the problem?" Everyone pointed at once. Derek threw up his arms. "This is crazy! I didn't touch anybody." Reuben calmly walked down the steps and handed over a printed report from his dashboard. "Verbal aggression, racial provocation, obstruction of transit. It's all in there." The officer turned to Derek. "Sir, you'll need to come with us." "I didn't break any laws." "No," the officer said, voice firm. "But you did break every decent rule of public behavior. You want to make your case, you do it outside. You're holding up the route." Derek's body tensed. He wasn't used to being told no. Not like this. He scanned the crowd again, hoping for a sympathetic face. Nothing. Even the guy who laughed earlier wasn't looking his way anymore. "Fine," he snapped. "You're going to be real sorry when this goes viral." The transit officer almost smiled. It already did. As Derek stepped off the bus, escorted, the doors hissed shut behind him. And just like that, the bus exhaled. Not a sound of victory. Just relief. Weight lifting. Reuben sat back down, adjusted his mirror, and looked at Gloria. "You ready to keep going, ma'am?" She gave him a small nod. "Thank you." He nodded back. "No, ma'am, thank you." The engine rumbled. The bus lurched forward, but the quiet wasn't awkward anymore. It was thoughtful. Restored, Camille leaned back in her seat. Sylvia smoothed her coat. A teenager in the back whispered, "That was crazy," to his friend. But outside the bus, a small crowd had begun to gather, and they were watching too. Outside, Derek stood beside the transit officers, arms folded, eyes darting toward the bus as if trying to see through the tinted glass. His jaw was locked. He wasn't shouting anymore. He looked like someone trying to reframe the story before it got out of his hands. But it already had. On the sidewalk, across from the stop, a young woman named Brianna Kessler had been live-streaming the incident since the bus pulled over. She'd been walking home from her job at a local bakery, sipping iced tea, when she saw the commotion. At first, she thought it was a stalled bus. Then she heard the shouting. Now, over 2,000 people were watching her feed. "Y'all," she whispered into her phone, pointing toward Derek. "This dude told a 70-something-year-old black woman to get in the back, Rosa Parks. On a city bus. In 2025, the chat exploded. Someone commented, 'Name and shame,' another. 'This is why we need more people like Sylvia and Camille.' A woman in Alabama wrote, 'Tell Ms. Gloria she's our hero.' Inside the bus, the atmosphere was still charged. Not with fear, but with something heavier. Reflection. Nobody rushed to check their phones or get back to what they were doing before. Eyes stayed forward, shoulders stayed upright. Camille turned to Gloria. "You want to say anything to them?" "He's still standing out there looking like he just got caught cheating on a test." Gloria chuckled. It was small, almost under her breath. "People like him always think they're the victim when they lose the room," she said. "That's the only time they ever feel small." From 2 rows back, a college-age man leaned forward. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "I just wanted to say thank you. My grandmother passed 2 years ago. She'd have done the same thing." Gloria smiled and gave a gentle nod. "Then you keep her memory close, especially on days like this." Sylvia turned toward the front, looking out the window at Derek still trying to explain himself to the officers. She shook her head slowly. "He's not used to accountability. That's all it is." Reuben from the driver's seat added, "Too many people think saying something ugly is just an opinion, but that ain't free speech. That's hate with a weak disguise." Another voice chimed in, this time from the middle of the bus. A young white woman, maybe 22, with pink hair and a tablet on her lap. She'd been quiet the entire ride. "My mom teaches middle school," she said. "They just read about the Freedom Riders. She said half the class didn't believe people still acted like this. I'm going to tell her about today." Camille turned around. "Tell her we fought back. Tell her we all did." Outside, Derek was getting louder again. The officers didn't respond. One of them held a clipboard and made notes. The other just pointed to the bus and said, "You made your choice. Now take responsibility for it." The door finally closed behind him. He walked off, still yelling over his shoulder, but nobody paid him much attention anymore. Brianna zoomed in on his retreating figure and spoke directly to her phone. "Remember his face," she said. "But more importantly, remember hers." She turned the camera toward the bus window, where Gloria sat, profile sharp and calm, eyes forward. Not triumphant, just present, stronger than anything hate could throw at her. Inside the bus, the energy had shifted again. No one clapped, no one cheered. They just sat with what happened. Processing. Gloria finally turned to Camille. "How's your grandfather doing?" Camille smiled. "He passed last year. Parkinson's. But he'd have loved this." Gloria reached out, patted her hand. "Then we keep showing up? For them. For the ones after." But once Derek was finally gone, the bus wasn't just quiet. It felt different. The bus rolled through Midland and Oak Ridge, the city slowly returning to its rhythm outside the windows. Grocery store signs, barbershops with cracked linoleum, corner gas stations with flickering LED prices. Inside, no one really spoke. They weren't avoiding conversation. They were sitting in the kind of silence that only comes after a moment that leaves an imprint. Gloria leaned her head against the window, her eyes soft, not tired. Thoughtful, like she was remembering something deeper than what had just happened. Camille still sat next to her, legs crossed, phone face down on her lap. Sylvia had moved a few rows forward, resting her handbag on her knees. A teenager nearby pulled out a sketchpad and quietly began to draw. Then a small voice broke the quiet. "Were you scared?" Everyone turned. It came from a little boy sitting near the front with his mother. He couldn't have been more than 9. His legs didn't even touch the floor. He looked at Gloria with wide, serious eyes, as if her answer might shape how he saw the world for the rest of his life. His mother looked horrified. "Micah, honey, don't—" "No, it's all right," Gloria said gently. She turned toward him. "Scared?" she repeated. "No, not really. I was angry. Tired mostly. Not tired like sleepy. Tired of people thinking they can treat others like less." Micah nodded slowly, as if that made sense in a way he hadn't learned in school yet. "But what if he hurt you?" Gloria took a second before answering. "Then somebody else would have stood up, just like they did today." Micah's mother blinked, her eyes glassy. She mouthed, "Thank you," toward Gloria, and Gloria simply smiled. The ride continued. They passed a mural painted along the side of a community center. It showed 4 figures standing tall: Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, Cesar Chavez, and Rosa Parks. Gloria saw it out the corner of her eye. She didn't react, but it lingered in her thoughts. Sylvia turned around in her seat. "Miss Gloria, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why didn't you yell at him?" Gloria let out a breath. Not tired, not frustrated, just full. "Because I've done enough yelling in my life. You know, I've found that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing. Just let people hang themselves with their own words." Sylvia nodded slowly. "You were never alone on that bus." "I know," Gloria replied. "That's what made the difference." A young man 2 rows back leaned into the aisle. "It's messed up we still got to deal with stuff like this. It's 2025. "It is messed up," Camille said. "But every time someone speaks up, even just one voice, it shifts things, inch by inch." Reuben, who hadn't spoken since the officers left, raised his voice just enough to be heard. "I got 2 daughters," he said. "If they ever find themselves in a moment like this, I hope the people around them do what y'all did today." Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. They just looked at each other, a bus full of strangers suddenly bound by something more real than routine. At the next stop, Sylvia gathered her things and stepped down. As she reached the door, she turned and looked back. "I've lived a long time," she said. "But today felt like a good one." Gloria gave her a small wave. The door shut behind Sylvia. The bus eased forward. Gloria turned to Camille. "Where you headed? Library? Got to write a paper on generational trauma. Think I just found my opening paragraph." Gloria chuckled. "Write the truth, baby. That's all we've got left that can still move hearts." But Gloria still had one more stop to make before she went home. The sun was starting to dip when Gloria finally stepped off the bus near 14th and Reynolds. The breeze had softened. That golden hour glow made the pavement look almost warm, like the world was offering a quiet nod of respect. She didn't walk straight home. Instead, she turned left, passing the corner store where the owner still called her Miss G, even though she hadn't been a regular in years. Her steps were slower now, not from pain, but from thought. Her feet knew the way. They carried her without needing permission. 3 blocks down, tucked beside a fenced-in community playground, stood the mural. It was one of those big, city-commissioned pieces with bold colors and outlines you could see from half a block away. Rosa Parks sat near the center, hands folded in her lap, eyes forward, painted in tones that made her look almost alive. Gloria walked right up to it and sat on the bench across the street. She didn't need to stare long. She'd been here before. Plenty of times. This bench had held her during quiet mornings and long evenings. She used to come here when her husband was still alive, holding his hand while he told stories about his army days like they were fairy tales. Now it was just her. She leaned back and looked at Rosa. "You'd think we'd be further by now," she murmured. "You sat so we could stand. And still, here we are, fighting for our seats." She pulled a folded envelope from her purse. Inside was a photo, her granddaughter holding baby Elijah. Gloria looked at it for a long time. Then she looked back at the mural. "I didn't move today," she said. "Not because I wanted trouble, not for pride. I just couldn't make myself shrink." A man pushing a stroller passed by, offered a polite smile. Gloria nodded back. "Someone once told me, 'You don't change people's hearts by shouting over them,'" she continued softly. "You do it by standing still, by showing them what dignity looks like when it doesn't bend." She tucked the photo away and looked back at Rosa one last time. "You weren't alone back then, and I wasn't alone today. I guess that's something." She stood slowly, feeling the weight of the day settle in her bones, but not in her spirit. Across the street, a group of kids played on the monkey bars. A girl with big hair and a pink jacket pointed at the mural and asked her dad, "Who's that?" He knelt beside her, replying, "That's Rosa Parks, baby. She helped change the world." The girl looked up. "Can I do that too?" Gloria smiled to herself and turned away, heading down the block toward home. If you're watching this and felt something, anything, don't let it stop here. Speak up, show up, sit where you belong and help others do the same. And if this story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more real moments that remind us how much strength lives in quiet resistance.